Hello, it's Taylor. I am your mental health and relationship expert, and thanks for tuning into my channel. So, today's topic is about how to present yourself as an expert when you are in front of a group of people, how to keep the room working smoothly, the energy flowing, and being on top of your topic points. So, this is a really interesting topic, and the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I do a lot of this training for my corporate side of my business. And I've been asked before, what are some of the tips that I could share with people who need to present or facilitate any types of trainings or talks, keynote speeches to a group of people. And so this could be a small group of people or it could be a large group of people. But generally speaking, there's going to be more engagement and interaction when you're dealing with a smaller group of people, which is my preference. But you can absolutely adjust this and apply this to a larger group of people, just assuming there's not going to be quite as much interaction, but there should still be some interaction and engagement with the larger group, and even, with each other, and the audience members with each other as well. So I wanted to break it down into three components. Basically, there's going to be the pre-stage, which is the preparation stage of learning about your client. And in that process, you really want to customize what it is that you're talking about. So let's say, with me, for example, I have specific topics that I'm selling to clients. So I have like a mental health course, I have a sexual harassment course, and I have a psychological safety and positive organizational culture course. So the titles are not necessarily set in stone, but I do like to use titles that will be specific to marketing to businesses and corporate businesses. But in regards to the actual content, those might be, templates that I have, but I will customize them for the specific clients based on the information that I gather in that consultation that I have with the whoever the point of contact is. And so that is really, really important to provide that as an inclusive benefit or free, but you don't want to have them pay extra for that initial consultation. And in that initial consultation, you really want to make sure that the content is relevant, not just to the client and the context of the client, the demographics, male and female, but also specific to their reason for hiring you. Because what I've found in my 13 years of practice, and this includes the corporate training aspect as well in presentations, is that there will be a specific incident that was the catalyst for the reason for this topic. Now, sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's more just a checking of the box situation, but you don't want to assume that it's just that and that they just saw a title and they wanted to say, hey, let's spend $1,000 or whatever and get this training on the books. So you really want to ask some questions about what was their reason for seeking this out, seeking you out, and what were they hoping to get resolved by facilitating this particular training. So you may start to draw out some contextual stories of conflict, of issues between employees or maybe management and company-based challenges. But yeah, you never really know, so you don't want to make assumptions other than the fact that there's usually more to the story once you scratch the surface. So you also want to, in regards to preparation in this first stage, is research a lot. So you want to always augment the content that you have, and it's going to increase its relevance to your clients and the companies by researching local and global information. So once you know more about the company, once you know more about the people, the type of people that they have and their specific culture, you want to attach that to some local search and a global search, because just doing global is not the whole picture. So for instance, when I do the sexual harassment training, it's one thing to do global trends and what you're seeing as a whole. The numbers are bigger, but that's not always what's most relevant. So I also look at the local statistics. So like in regards to the Cayman Islands, looking at the statistics locally are quite shocking. They paint a completely different picture. because we're lacking statistics. So that information is really, really important and relevant to the companies because, whether it's different or the same, they want to know what their characteristics, what are the basic elements that are important for them to know so that they can apply this information as best as they can. So definitely don't forget that research phase and being thorough about it. So make sure you have enough time before the presentation to implement that, and then you want to assimilate it all as well, right, and integrate it well. So it's not just numbers or data that doesn't mean anything. You need to make it meaningful to your audience, so making it relevant and contextual to them and not talking over their heads, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the other part is rehearsing. Once you've sat down and you've done your research, you've done your consultation, you've created your content, and you have the PowerPoint or the handouts or the script, right? You're going to be able to take the time then to read it over, to rehearse it, to go over time and time again so that you become really familiar with the customized version of your content. Because hopefully, if it is something that is a template that you're using, you're already familiar with it on some level, but then this is taking it a step further and really making all the add-ons feel really, really natural as well. So try not to be, or don't plan to be on script. You want to be able to be so natural that the information is conversational and it doesn't feel forced, and the material that you're actually projecting or handing out is just a reference guide. It's not something that you're reading from. So that takes a lot of time in the preparation stage as well. And so the second part of this is the actual presentation, right? So now that you've prepared and you've rehearsed and you've done all of the content part, when you're actually presenting, this can be the most tricky part for a lot of people because it's about personality, it's about energy. And some people are maybe better suited for presentations than others. Some people are better suited for public speaking than others, but it does not mean that you can't do it. You can absolutely practice, which would be another part of this, right, in regards to the rehearsing. You can practice these skills in public speaking and training and presentations in order to be better at it, be more engaging, to sort of command that attention from people where they really absorb the information and they find it relevant to them and they're enjoying it. You don't want it to just feel like it's school. It's not just a didactic where they're taking notes, but something that it's an experience that you're providing them so they remember that experience on some level. So when you present, don't rush, right? You need to make sure that when you start the process that you're absolutely meeting them where they're at. So you're going to make introductions. You're going to say a little bit about yourself and try not to talk over their heads too much, although you want to present yourself as an expert, but then also come down to earth and personalize yourself. And that's also coming up next, so I'll get into that a little bit more. But you want to get what their expectations are, get an idea of what their expectations are. So as you're doing the introductions, as you're being more conversational, perhaps getting their names and doing an icebreaker, you then want to move into what is it that you expect from this content? What do you want to get out of this training? What are you looking for? And one thing to note is, depending on the size of the group, you don't need to get everybody's feedback, because if the group is too large, it's going to take an awful lot of time to go around to every single person and get their personal reflections. So you want to be able to take the initiative and be assertive about selecting people that you feel are engaged or significant in some way. Maybe you're familiar with some of the faces because you've done your homework, and you want to hear from someone who's maybe in leadership positions, maybe someone who's in subordinate positions, and get a variety of perspectives. But absolutely consider time as a limitation and don't go through 50 people. Just handpick some people and then go with that. And remember their names. That's really important once you do get their names, to actually use them. So then just common structure is to overview what not only what their expectations are, but what your intentions are for the day, and set that up for them so that there aren't any surprises. And then what I like to inject here is a real invitation from you as the presenter to be inclusive of their experience and their questions and their comments. And if you want to say, wait till the end to, offer up your questions and your comments, you can do that. I like more of an organic process. So I just tell them, feel free to jump in anytime. I will redirect you if I feel like we're becoming tangential. But for the most part, I want you to remember the points and say them when they're relevant to you so that it can be more applicable in the moment. So set that up beforehand. And like in my case, when I talk about trauma or harassment, it can be sensitive. And so when you are dealing with sensitive topics, it's really important to be compassionate and humble for not knowing what people's experiences are with the subject matter. So, it could be anything that you're talking about. And sometimes even if you don't assume it's sensitive, it can trigger things in people that you're unaware of. So I usually include a little bit of a disclaimer. But I say it not like in a textbook kind of way, but very personally. I just sort of say, if anything ever is discussed that you feel uncomfortable with, or it brings up anything for you that is sensitive, feel free to excuse yourself and use the bathroom, or if you just need a break, you're kind of overwhelmed with information, or you need to take care of something, that's okay. I'd feel more comfortable if you leave the room for a couple of minutes and then come back and join us. And if needed, come speak to me after the presentation or the training, and we can address anything that came up for you during the event. So I find that once you invite that in sort of that avenue for them, then they feel more comfortable. It sort of disarms them in a way, and they feel like they can approach you and be more honest about what they really experience versus, just sort of listening to you like it's a lecture, because I don't think that's always an appropriate structure for these things. So, and then just general public speaking tips you can look up also, but one thing that's really important that I'm always conscious of is speaking slow enough and you want to speak with energy, you want to have like a vigor to your voice, so it's not cracking, it's not too low and airy, but at the same time, you don't want to be screaming, you don't want to be so high or loud that it comes off as too aggressive. So I call it like slow and steady pacing of your actual tonality, and you want to be engaged. And obviously you can see my hands moving. I use my hands, I have movement in my presentation, but you don't want to overdo it either. So you have to have a nice balance of that level of body and body language basically, and nonverbals. And then as you go, you want to check in with your audience, right? You don't want to just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. People will tune you out. So you want to be able to then introduce an activity or a role play, or ask them to ask questions, or you ask them particular questions, and try to get them to engage with each other. The more you catalyze the different parts of the brain, you trigger the different parts of the brain, the more they're going to sort of wake up and be present in the moment. So that's why movement is helpful. That's why interaction is helpful. Something visual can be helpful. Something audio is helpful. Incorporating writing can be helpful as well. So having that multimedia, multidimensional learning, and you don't have to hit all the points. It has to be relevant to the topic, but especially with large groups, you definitely want to switch gears and check in with them and have them interact on another layer like that of the experience. And the other thing is being okay and giving yourself permission to redirect your audience members, or even yourself. Sometimes you go off track. And I find that very important, to be transparent enough that you can kind of say no and, say you made a mistake, or correct yourself, or just being really personable in that way really goes a long way. But also with them, you want to make sure that you're able to say, I'm going to bookmark your thought for now, and if we feel like it's something that needs to be addressed later on, we'll bring it back up, or email me privately and we can talk about it. But let's get back to the topic and bring everybody else in, because I feel like we're kind of getting off topic a little bit. So don't be afraid to be assertive and take that type of initiative. It's really important for them to feel like they can trust you, that you're the leader, and that you're the expert ultimately. But obviously you want to do that in a polite way and with compassion and humility. So I've pretty much said most of the things. I mean, there's going to be a lot more detailed if you actually want to train to be a better presenter. But one of the things I don't want you to forget is how important evaluations are. So whether your system is to have them take a few minutes and do a quick evaluation of you, paper and pen, or if you want to email them a link to an evaluation for your presentation, I think it's better to have an incentive to do that, because then they're more apt to complete it and you'll have a better response rate. But we don't always want to print out a bunch of papers, especially if it's a large group, but they are better at just completing it quickly and then turning it in. You'll have a better response rate if you do it right then and there. So that's a personal preference, and you'll kind of see, depending on your incentive and your group of people, what works better. So you can play with that a little bit. Now, the last stage, the last part of this is the personalizing. So I've kind of touched on that a little bit, about the energy that we bring to the presentation and how we engage with the audience, being transparent, being personable, and you can use humor as well. It's okay to inject a little bit of good old-fashioned humor. You don't want to be too bold, and you definitely don't want it to be inappropriate. But I find that it really is quite disarming, and people will remember you because you've humanized yourself, basically. You're not just some video that they're watching. You're someone of interest and of intrigue that has a personality that they can engage with. Now, the caveat to this is that there will be some people that may not like you, but you have to be brave enough to say, you know what, the minority will probably, one or two people will not take to you, but they usually will respect you on some level. So that's something that's important to keep in mind, that you're not necessarily looking to be liked, you're looking to be respected and for them to remember you. And so that's all about cultivating that engaging personality, of being personable and really interacting with them in an experiential way, because it's how you make them feel that really matters. And obviously, if you've got valid information that you're presenting to them in a relevant way, that's what's going to drive home all the points that you have planned to have them absorb and apply in their context. So that's about it for my general 3 tips. Let's just review them again. The first one is the preparation stage. The second one is obviously the actual presentation stage. And the last one is that personalization that you're bringing to the table. That's your personality. That's the energy. And I find that that can be the tricky one, because you want to say, it's just not me, it's not my thing, I'm not good at it, I'm not outgoing, but you can get better. And even if you're not the same as somebody else that just has that star quality, if you're going to do a job well, then you can do it better if you practice it and you cultivate those skills that will help you get to that optimal level of being a better presenter. And it's not always about comparing you to somebody else who has that natural energy. It's just about being better at it yourself and doing a good job, giving great information and making it an enjoyable and relevant experience for your clients. So thanks for listening to this video today. And if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put them below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, so press that red button. And feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have questions. You can email me. I might not respond right away, but you can email me at any time and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And it's been wonderful being at my Airbnb in Miami. As you can see, we've got the great Buddha over here keeping me company. And I'm really enjoying the atmosphere. So it's great talking to you. Have a good afternoon. Ciao.